We're missing Nathan. Is Nathan coming?
No.
Really could use him. But I will call the meeting to order and we will move slowly through the agenda in hopes that he arrives. So good afternoon, everybody. This is the September 20th, 2024 meeting of the Town and University Relations Committee. I'm going to ask the members and staff to go around the table and introduce themselves, starting with Kathleen.
Kathleen Patterson, I'm the Acting Executive Director and the Senior Communications Manager for the Mansfield Downtown Partnership.
Thank you.
Jennifer Kaufman, Director of Planning and Development.
John Armstrong, UConn, Associate Dean of Students.
Sean Vasington, Director of Site Planning and University Landscape Architect, UConn.
Just in time.
Nathan First, Vice President for Student Life and Enrollment at UConn.
Ryan Aylesworth, Town Manager.
Paul Aho, Planning and Zoning.
Dale Rose, I'm a community member on this committee.
And online, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, Brian Coleman, I'm Town Council.
Hi, Susanna Cowan. I'm one of the citizen reps, and thank you for allowing this continued attendance online. It was too close to my previous meeting to get to Town Hall, so thank you.
Well, I did eat lunch in my car. And Margaret, you are?
Margaret Chady, Communications Specialist, and I'm the staff member for the admin for this committee.
Okay.
And I believe that the captioning is showing. Is everyone able to see that? Who's remote?
It's showing on one screen. I'm not sure it's showing. It isn't showing on the others.
Oh, you asked
There it
about
is.
the classes. I got them here at home.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody to please speak into the microphones. Otherwise, the people who are online can't hear what we're saying. And the meeting is being recorded. So is there anybody from the public who wishes to address the council, or the committee? I'm saying my seat is still warm from last night because we had a council meeting that went until 11:30. So, all right.
We had no requests, Mayor.
No requests. Okay. The next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from July 9th, 24. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes
Is
for July, what was it, 24?
July 9th, 2024.
July 9th, 2024.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Dale seconds. Any comments or corrections? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Our non-voting members are our staff. That's, I'm sorry, I'm spacey today. Jennifer, Kathleen, and Margaret are non-voters. Okay, now the next part of our agenda is regular updates. The first are the staff-to-staff meetings. Ryan, you want to tell, and Nathan, you want to tell us about those?
I started the last time. You want to start this time?
Sure. So we met recently and had an opportunity to get an update on recent developments and some of the ongoing things going there, and to talk about developments in the town in relation to the standard and other things that are going on there. So, aside from that, there's ongoing interests around making sure that we coordinate across public safety and university safety that way. We also had an opportunity to talk about enrollment figures for the university as well as housing numbers, which I can talk a little bit more about when we get to the university update a little bit later on. How'd I do? What else did I miss?
The perfect synopsis. I don't think there's anything I would add. So
The issue of enrollment showed up in our meeting last night on the town council. So I really look forward to seeing some clarification on that.
great.
40,000 new residents in the town of Mansfield has a number of us spooked.
Maybe just one addition, 'cause I did mention this at the council meeting last night. So my understanding is that Phil Hunt, the new deputy chief of staff to President Merrick, will be a regular presence in our monthly meetings. And so this last meeting was his first check-in with us, and just really, really impressed with everything he brings to the table, and great to have somebody in the president's office be part of those regular conversations as well. So with Nathan and others, definitely feel like, we are firing on all cylinders right now.
I would assume that Phil is on the plane to Washington to meet the president with the basketball team.
Stands to reason that might be possible.
Yes, my deputy mayor is on the plane to Washington to meet the president with the basketball team. So, okay, we've done that. Now, Town of Mansfield development updates.
So nothing much has happened in terms of new developments because we are still in a moratorium on multifamily development. However, we are working our way through the new multifamily regulations, the Planned Housing Design District. The Planning and Zoning Commission has, we held at least 2 public hearings where we heard comments from the public. The Planning and Zoning Commission is working through those comments. The last 2 meetings, we really focused in on the siting criteria, where that planned housing design district can land, and the maximum density that would be allowed in each zone. So we look forward to the public hearing, is tabled, but there will be another opportunity for the Planning and Zoning Commission to hear comments on that. In terms of the existing developments that are going to be opening soon, the Standard is still on track to open in August of 2025. The Villages at Four Corner, that's the one immediately adjacent to the Standard, they have filed their zoning permit application. There are a number of things that an applicant has to do after they get special permit approval. They have to go through the zoning permit application. And for this particular one, they have some Army Corps of Engineer permitting to get. They have the Office of Traffic Safety Administration, those things to iron out, and just a few things to work out with our department. So really DOT through OSTA is the one that takes a little while. So, but they are making progress. The other applications.
Can I ask a question? Why the Army Corps of Engineers?
Because they are doing some work within wetlands that trigger that. They are filling some wetlands there. However, they are doing restoration. So the Army Corps of Engineers needs just to look at that. So we have not heard from, in terms of zoning permit applications from the hub or for the folks at the golf course 497 Middle Turnpike. You all, I'm sure, have been driving by Eagleville Green. That is moving along very quickly, and they are hoping for an opening in early 2025. But they have a lot going on in that site. And then in southern Mansfield, Aspen Dental, Five Guys, and Chipotle, they are looking to open within the next couple of weeks. So they are working with our building department as well as Jillian Woodmansee from our office in terms of getting their certificate of zoning compliance. They also are working with through some issues with DOT. So I think that's all I have in terms of development updates, but I did want to note that we have chosen a consultant to update our 2025 Plan of Conservation Development. That's FHI Studio. They are the folks that are working on the Northwest Mansfield Plan. So that project will be kicking off very shortly. In terms of the Northwest Mansfield Plan, we will be putting something out quickly. We are going to be wrapping in all of the recommendations into our POCD because we're coming to the conclusion that in order for those recommendations to be really, truly implementable, it has to be part of the POCD. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Does that mean rewriting the regs as part of the POCD?
Well, the regulations, we're constantly looking at those, and we're looking at our multifamily regulations right now. We do have a number of items to go through on our regulations. That is looking at how to get some small lot single family development. We're talking about like a residential infill regulation. We're reviewing our several of our performance standards related to lighting and landscaping and parking. We're going to be looking at overall all of our zones. We have probably have too many zones in our town that are kind of duplicative in a lot of ways. So we're going to be looking at those as well. Those are going to be ongoing zoning regulation updates as part of we have many projects happening in the department.
Questions for Jennifer? Sean?
Thanks, Jen. Can you give us a schedule update on both Hunting Lodge Road and South Eagleville Road?
In terms of the public improvements there, in terms
Yeah,
of the culvert replacement?
We were last told that we could expect it as soon as the end of this month to be reopened.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Yeah, I think I don't have my my report from last night in front of me, but if I remember from DPW, I remember all the specifics in terms of the work that remains, but I remember early October, I think, being the time. So it kind of judge what you said, the end of the month, so somewhere around late September, early October.
Do you have a begin or end of the South Eagleville Road improvements?
I not as I sit here, no, I'd have
No.
to.
Okay, we can follow up.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can get updates from John and Derek
Yeah.
from Public Works, and I'm sure they could provide
I have
a
a
detailed.
DOT meeting with John tomorrow. I can ask him. Thank you.
That's an issue with your Hillside Road work, I would assume.
Which one?
Either or both.
Maybe. I don't think so. I imagine there'll be a good traffic management plan with the DOT project. And you know, I forgot to ask, what about the signal? I guess I can ask John this again tomorrow, but just for everyone else's benefit. The signal is Separatist and South Eagleville.
I would direct that question to John.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
There was such a flurry of activity on road things, and then it sort of stopped. So, what is being done about the various pedestrian safety things that we talked about?
I think it would be best to just get a comprehensive update from DPW and others. Maybe we can put that on the agenda for the next.
That's
meeting.
my suggestion. Ask John to come at our next meeting, give us a full update on all the road and pedestrian issues. Anything else, John?
And Jennifer, just wanted to, this is an FYI, we received outreach from Landmark Properties, who'll be managing the standards at Four Corners. We're working to get them on the off-campus housing website, which will be a pathway to have them at the off-campus housing fair. So the first one will be November 13th. So they're looking to pre-lease, made outreach to us, and CoStar, who oversees the website, we host it, is working with them to get them on the site and to get them at the off-campus housing fair.
Any other questions for Jennifer?
Jennifer, have a question. Maybe it's just really naive on my part, but when applications come in for land usage, and most of these seem to be for apartments, et cetera, is there any possibility that Mansfield also says, yes, we're interested in this, but you also need to include retail space?
So we do have a provision for mixed use. That would be called a mixed use development. And so in the PB3, there is a requirement that they have to have some sort of retail space. But as we all know, there's a very limited market right now for retail space. So, yes, you recall that both the Villages and the Standard have retail space. The Villages has approximately, I believe, 15,000 square feet of retail space, retail commercial, and the Villages has 12,000 square feet. But something like the golf course property, they are in a residential zone, so they would not have retail space. The Hub also has retail space in their development. And it really depends on the zone.
Yes, and I see that. I mean, we certainly will be having sufficiently new housing within the year and the next year. And I just was wondering, is there a way balancing that there is retail space for these additional people that are going to be within the residents of Mansfield? That's all.
think you'll see that in these new developments.
Okay.
The retail, I would assume it's really that they haven't given us a plan as to who that's going to be, they're going to be renting to, but
Mhm.
most likely there'll be services for the residents, but they've talked about a coffee
Right.
shop at the Standard, and so it'll be open to anyone in the community.
We had
Thank
such
you.
a hard time getting real retail sales into the downtown. My guess is at best it would be convenience stores and fast food.
It really depends on the market, right? So we
Yeah.
can't dictate who goes in there. We can dictate, the use, whether it's going to be a restaurant. They'll have to come in for a zoning permit to ensure that they have appropriate parking, but we can't dictate who the customer is going to be.
Right.
So
Brian?
Yeah, if I remember right, in their presentation, they were looking for, on the standards, let me clarify that. They were looking for 3 large retail spaces as opposed to a lot of smaller outlets. Is that still true?
Well, I know the Huskies is going to go in there.
Huskies is going to go into the hub,
Yeah, not
And
the
the-
standard. Yeah.
not the Standard. Yeah, yep.
Oh,
So the
okay.
Standard will
yeah,
have,
I'm talking about the original standard plan. They were talking about 3 large retail spaces. As opposed to, like the downtown where you have a lot of outlets, smaller outlets.
yeah, I have to go back to look at the actual plans, but I think how they're dividing that retail space is to be determined. But I can,
Let's
if
read it,
you'd like,
yes.
I could get you more information as to, where the retail is going to be located. They're going to be located in the front of the development, but how many retail spaces they're going to be having is to be determined. But I can either reach out to the developer or look at the approved site plans.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious if they're still going along those lines or changing the makeup.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just jump in because I was able to reach out to our DPW director and in real time got some useful additional information that I can share with the group, but I would encourage Mr. Vasington still to follow up for more. So he's checking with DOT on the status of the signal. We haven't received any update, but he's going to be making that inquiry now. And then we're looking to break ground next spring as far as the boulevard safety, pedestrian safety improvements. Yep.
Susanna?
Hi, thank you. I feel like I should also preface this with I'm still learning, and I hope this doesn't sound terribly ignorant of me, but when we consider new signals on streets, I assume there's an assessment of general visibility of signal. That particular rise at Separatist, as some of you I'm sure know, is impossible to see at certain times of year as you come up South Eagleville. The sun is directly in front of you, and a signal would be invisible unless there were some sort of strobe light or something catching. And I just wanted to make sure that they are considering sort of the calendar and what happens in terms of visibility at different times of year.
Appreciate that feedback. I'll make sure it's relayed.
Okay, any further questions on this subject? Then let's move on to the downtown partnership. Kathleen?
Well, to kind of piggyback off of what Jennifer had reported about new businesses, in addition to the 3 going in at the southern part of town, we also have a new business coming to downtown Stores called Nikki's Dog House. It'll go into 1244 Stores Road, which is the Stores Commons building. They're an established business out of Putnam, Connecticut, and this will be their 2nd location. And we have a returning business coming to the former Mansfield General Store, which has undergone a lot of extensive renovations. And Lisa's Chocolates and Gifts, who had previously leased the commercial space, has signed a new lease, and she'll be opening hopefully in October. So we're going to try to support her in her opening efforts. Other work that the partnership has been doing with regards to economic development. I spoke at this last meeting about our promotional campaign to market Mansfield as a destination for summer fun. That campaign has basically wrapped up. We had our ad air during the Paris Olympics on NBC Connecticut. It showed on regular TV in their viewing area in Connecticut, but it also was on Peacock, their streaming platform, and that was for all of Connecticut. We had positive response. That the goal was just to elevate Mansfield's profile and get people to think of us as a destination for the summertime. And I think that's been successful. We also supplemented it with a web page on the town's website, highlighting different attractions, places to go for outdoor dining, different events that municipal agencies were hosting. And we've done a series of social media posts on the town and partnership Facebook pages to support it. And last week, the Connecticut Office of Tourism put out an e-blast called Summer's Not Over Yet. And they highlighted the Adventure Park at Stores, Mansfield Drive-In Theater and Marketplace, and the Yukon Dairy Bar, all of which were featured in our ad, which is also on our ConnecticutVisit.com profile for maybe 2 more days. As soon as I can switch over to fall, we'll be showing fall things, which brings me to yesterday, Thrillist, which is a online kind of like magazine for travelers, published an article entitled "The College Sports Capital of New England is also a fall foliage destination." And they highlighted Storrs campus of Yukon and then downtown Storrs as a destination for people from Boston and New York. They highlighted the Benton, the Connecticut State Museum of Natural History, and then within downtown Storrs, the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry, the Adventure Park at Storrs. Their geography is a little off. They also mentioned Mansfield Drive-In, which is not in downtown Storrs, but is in Mansfield. Dog Lane Cafe, Kathmandu Kitchen, Muya, Gansett Wraps, Hops 44, and Ted's were all highlighted. So that was a fun little feature and gets us moving into the fall. And of course, the big thing for us in the fall is our Celebrate Mansfield Festival, which I know so many of you around the table are already committed to participating. So I appreciate all of your time and efforts. We have a full festival. We have a waiting list going. But at this point, I believe we will not be taking any additional booths. We'll be sending out the packets soon. We have a full day. We have a puppet pageant. We have local musicians, dance, martial arts demonstrations, cooking demonstrations, and a juried art show, all as part of the event, which will be Saturday, September 28th from 2 to 8 p.m. Because of our generous sponsors, the event is free and open to everyone to attend. So we hope everybody can come down and enjoy a day of celebrating our community. In terms of the town and university relations, I will say we have a very nice mix of representation at this event, including a number of Yukon student organizations and club sports teams who will be volunteering. I don't have the numbers yet, but we have over 100 students already signed up to volunteer. So we really appreciate that. And then looking ahead, we have 2 more events on our calendar for the general public, and that is our Halloween event, which we now are partnering with the Parks and Recreation Department to offer both trick-or-treating at downtown Storrs businesses, and then the Trick-or-Trunk event, which had traditionally been held at the community center, has outgrown the space available over there. So now it will be on Wilbur Crossway and possibly extending down Royce Circle. So that will be Saturday, October 26th, 3 to 5 p.m. It's also free and open to everybody. And then our last event of the year will be Winter Welcome, which is Saturday, December 7th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Haven't really started work on that just yet. Trying to get through the festival. We have a few things planned, but basically it's just celebrating the winter time. And then the final thing that we have started work on is for the first quarter of 2025. And that's our Taste Two Towns Mansfield Wyndham Restaurant Week. We partner with the town of Wyndham and the Willimantic Downtown Neighborhood Association to highlight the culinary community in our 2 towns. We're going to be setting the actual date soon, but it'll be sometime in the first quarter.
And just as a heads up, there are ongoing discussions between UConn and and our town staff about the structure of the partnership in the future. And I personally am very hopeful that we will continue to have a very strong partnership and that the responsibilities of the organization will actually expand and become a more an even more important, have an even more important role in development as we go forward. So from my perspective, I think this is really very good news, and I'm delighted to know it. Any questions for Kathleen? All right. You know, one of the things people have sometimes said to me, there's nothing to do in Mansfield. And when we start to list these things, it is amazing what you can do. And none of that talked about Jorgensen or sports or or the theater. You know, there's so much to do in Mansfield. You cannot do it all. It's almost like being in a city. All right, UConn construction updates.
Speaking of cities, so we're winding down or have wound down. Since our last meeting, we did successfully complete the residence hall project and the phase we're in for the infrastructure that supports that building and the rest of the South Campus. So kudos to everyone involved with that. It was an accelerated project, both of them, to get that facility online. I'm sure Nathan's very happy about that. And moving in went pretty smoothly. They're dealing with some day 2 requests and the things you would expect of that, the significance of that construction. But it seems like the students are very happy with the facility. If you haven't visited, I encourage you to have a look, at least from the outside. It is a relatively secure facility, and walk the grounds too. And we're pretty proud of how the outdoor courtyards turned out too. There's a large generator in one of the courtyards that'll be there till about this time next year or sometime next summer. But other than that, what you see is what you get, and we're quite proud of it. We tried some new things with furnishings, and it'll be nice to see how the students and other programs on campus use the space. One of the lawns was designed as an event lawn, so we'll see how folks use it in the future. I mentioned the infrastructure project that does go into next summer, so we'll have more impacts next summer with that work on South Campus, particularly surrounding the area of S-Lot, where we finished the expansion to the South Chiller plant. Things that we're tracking for next year, the dam at Mirror Lake that you've heard me speak about for a number of years now, that is under contract and set to mobilize in March. We're doing the pre-construction activities and logistics over the winter. The School of Nursing project will have a groundbreaking this semester. Its pre-construction activities will begin, and you'll see the real construction start in the spring. We're taking a project to the board in a couple of weeks for the tennis facility. There'll be a small project there to get that up to Title 19 compliance. And we'll begin renovations at the field house over the course of the end of the semester. I believe that begins.
Questions for Sean?
Yeah.
Yes, Brian?
Thank you, Sean, for your update. When was the last time the field house was renovated?
Oh, gosh. Before me, anybody want to take a stab that's been there longer than 12 years? There's been minor renovations, but nothing to this scale that I can recall, and at least since I was a student. I'm really not sure.
What are the consequences of the renovation? Are there going to be more or fewer seats? I know that they did some work on the roof a couple of years ago.
Well, just in broad strokes, I think it's to enhance the student athlete experience with some academic space, some offices for programs that don't have offices. Nathan, you want to expand on that?
I was just going to comment that this is a result of a donation, right, from Tricia Bailey and alum
Correct.
Of the university, and it's been one of the most significant gifts that we've received over the last near time anyway. So pretty excited about the project, and it really reinforces our support for our student athletes.
That's great news. The last I remember that place was being rather dark and rather dusty. I'm sure it's probably been renovated maybe one time since I was there in 1980. Maybe, hopefully. But yeah, that's exciting. I do have a question about the dam. I know we had been talking, I know you've been talking quite some time, Sean, about the Mirror Lake project. And in the beginning, I think we were discussing that it was going to be dredged and deep. And I know you're probably, from what I might understand, you're probably required to fix and maintain the dam because of its status as, if I remember, was a hazard. But are we dredging at this time, or are they not allowing us to dredge it while you actually do the repair of the dam?
No, there's not a schedule for the dredging or phase 2 of the improvements project at this time.
Okay, I was kind of hoping you were going to be able to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further, Paul?
Yeah, have you given any thought to pickleball?
Oh, our pickleball
No,
court.
yeah, I know we got the pickleball, but has the university thought about a separate
It's
pickleball court?
funny. Nathan may have an update, but this just came to my mind this morning while I passed the tennis facility because I was anticipating it myself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, actually, we're going to be looking at the tennis courts that are technically owned by the recreation program up by the tennis facility. And some of those courts will be converted into pickleball courts with the ability to convert them back to tennis courts in the case where we have bigger competitions and the like for our athletics program.
Great.
Well, we will be having a formal opening of our pickleball courts in the next week or so. I don't have the date in my mind, but Ryan probably has it. We have 4 regular pickleball courts and 2 competition pickleball courts. So I'm sure that students and staff would be welcome to use these things.
I believe that's a week from Thursday.
A week from
at 9
Thursday.
a.m.
I've used those courts. They're very well used. They're very appreciated. I think that there's many times there's a line people waiting. So I think that it's growing in popularity.
All right.
I have a question about that because pickleball is very loud. And if you're trying to play tennis and you're on a court nearby, it's not going to be fun. So I don't know if anything's being done about how to mitigate the noise in just the sound in pickleball versus the concentration in tennis, which is much, in a way, softer unless people are yelling. But
Switch to pickleball.
I guess from the standpoint of the courts at the town, with help from Michael Taylor and family, private donations have made this project possible. I know there were conversations, concerns, I suppose, raised about the sound. This is well documented in other areas where pickleball courts have been constructed. To my knowledge, there was nothing specifically done like a acoustical design in mind. I think we're going to adopt somewhat of a wait and see approach and see what the actual experience is with our courts and the adjacency to the community center and the playground there and otherwise. But we're I guess going into this with a positive attitude and we'll evaluate or reevaluate as needed.
oh, yeah, I think the ones near the community center, I think that should be fine. I'm concerned about on campus, if there are pickleball courts and tennis courts right next to each other, they could be in a way a kind of a conflict.
Yeah, noted. I think that there are a couple facilities there, one on one side of the street, as you know, and the other on the other side of the street. So I think it's a similar approach we'll be taking that what Ryan suggests here as well. So we'll
Okay.
see how this goes.
All right.
Well, if Paul hasn't complained about the pickleball court, nobody will, because he's right on the other side of it.
All right.
And as I understand it, there's no plans to do pickleball on the competition courts that UConn Tennis uses.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Just the community
right.
and the recreation courts
That's
on the
right.
other side of the street.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
Yep.
Any further questions on campus updates? Oh, I'm sorry, Susanna, sorry.
Oh, I just
missed
raised
you.
my hand. That's fine. It's just an ad lib comment that, like every other new sport, pickleball, which I haven't explored myself, but have been paying attention to, the rackets are getting quieter. It's got newer tech and it's evolving as a popular sport. And so I think it's not quite as horribly loud. And actually, word on the street was the ones you get from the community center are loud. But most of the privately owned ones that people are bringing are the newer style and quieter.
Thank you. All right, early voting on campus. I will say that there's been some newspaper articles saying that this didn't work, but this morning I had an interview with WFSB, which will be aired sometime in the week, talking about our second voting location, which will be above the bookstore on campus. This has been a bit of a tricky adventure, a new statute that nobody really had figured out what it meant. But we have had really wonderful collaborations with Nathan and his staff and our registrars of voters. So there will be a second voting location for early voting on campus for 2 weeks before Election Day. The actual Election Day voting will be in the regular locations, with one exception, and that is that people who live in the Eagleville area and normally vote at the fire department will be voting at the Mansfield Middle School. But other than that, the early voting location is going to be up and running. Nathan, you want to report on how it's going?
Yeah, sure. It's very exciting. Our students are really excited about this. We have a coordinating meeting again tomorrow to talk about the logistics, be it the technical connection that needs to be established through the Secretary of State in Frontier Communications, apparently, which is making progress as we understand it. We also will be providing for a limited number of spaces for the public to park. Such that members of the public can easily access the voting site as well. Everything from ensuring the 70-foot distance from the entrances to 75 foot, sorry. And making sure that we have University of Safety on standby as needed to make sure that our registrars of voters get what they need and compliance for participation in voting. So it's pretty exciting stuff, I would say.
And so it's 2 weeks, including the weekend, and Tuesdays and Thursdays include evening hours. The other days are closed. I think they're 10 to 6.
Is it just the
and-
last Tuesday and Thursday that are the extended, or is it both pairs of Tuesday? I thought it was just, I guess I thought it was just the Tuesday and Thursday of week 2 that was 8 to 8, but it's 10 to 6 for sure, at least. I thought it was 8 to 8.
Last.
8 to
Last
8,
Tuesday
just the last two.
I thought. but-
Okay, students can register to vote online, or they can register in the early voting location. We encourage people to register online beforehand because that's easy, and then come to the bookstore to vote. Early voting doesn't depend on your the district in which you normally vote. You can cast an early ballot at either of the 2 early polling locations, one in Town Hall and one at the bookstore on campus. So it really is a marvelous way for people who are busy, distracted, and have only moments in their calendar to do something that they really would like to do, and to do it very quickly and easily. So I really want to thank the university for the collaboration on this, because the details have turned out to be very complicated. And there was a bit of a flap over a couple of days when we thought we had the secretary's approval and then we didn't. But this morning I understand that the Secretary of State's office has given approval. So it's just the last bit is the wire to the laptop that Frontier has to install but it should work.
As we understand it.
As we-
Yes.
Brian?
Thank you, Tony. I have a logistical question. This is kind of new to me entirely.
It's
Maybe
new to
it-
everybody.
Maybe it exists elsewhere where we have a voting location in a place of commerce and a place of business. And I believe the voting, correct me if I'm wrong, but the voting is going to be on the second floor of the bookstore?
Correct.
Okay, so how are we gonna stem any sort of election interference? It could be minor stuff like someone walking in with a Trump shirt or Harris shirt or walking around with pamphlets inside the bookstore. How is that exactly gonna be monitored and curtailed?
The registrar of voters are confident in our ability to do that. And I'd say that what their answer has been in some of our earlier conversations is that they'll do so much the same way as they do in other locations. Perhaps as an example, when voting occurs in this building,
Correct.
That they ask the individual to go to the restroom and turn their shirt inside out or something along these lines, or to leave and come back. And so we're prepared to do that and to step in to assist where necessary at the request of the registrar of voters. So I would just note that the room that's being utilized for the voting is actually lockable at night and doesn't have any windows that face the bookstore itself. So once you're inside that room where the voting will be taking place, you won't be able to see the rest of the bookstore from that location.
Okay, and can you give me any idea, and I mean, this is probably a hard number to come up with, maybe you have them, how many people go in and out of that bookstore during those hours of voting, early voting?
On a daily basis, they have hundreds, if not more than that go in and out of the doors for that building every day.
Okay, and did you say you were gonna post security there?
We won't have security at the doors, but we're obviously surveilling the campus, and if an issue arises, our university safety will be responsive to the needs there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I just would like to say congratulations. I'm so happy that this is happening. And is there a need for any volunteers for registration on the campus site versus the town?
You should send a note to Ann Grenadier of Vera Ward, our registrars of voters. I sent my note in yesterday and they
Okay.
said they would be sending out information within the next week.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
And it will require several people to be there all of the time that the polls are open. So there are a lot of hours that are going to have to be covered. The state gave every town $10,000 to manage this early voting procedure, which is nowhere near enough, particularly not in a large city. And if you're a city like New Haven or Hartford, 1 or 2 early voting places are nowhere near adequate. But for Mansfield, this is ideal. The town hall and the university are perfect. So, and it really, I can't emphasize how important the collaboration has been to getting this together, because I know that there are other cities where the collaboration has failed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've done a really good job. So now we watch and see what happens.
It'll be a learning experience, I'm sure.
It'll be
Yep.
everywhere. All right.
Tony, I just
Mayor-
want to point out, I think you skipped over an update
3E.
from Nathan and John.
Oh, right. I saw construction updates and I skipped right over that. Go right ahead. Trifocals sometimes do that to
Yep.
you. I gotta tell you, I do that all the time. Go ahead.
I'll blame my contact lenses the next time I skip over an item like that, which happens regularly. So just a few things. We are having a ribbon cutting for Connecticut Hall on Friday, which is exciting. So we'll have some state elected officials in town for that. It'll be a very brief speaking ceremony associated with that. The other thing that I wanted to note from the university updates is that we actually have a press conference with Secretary of State Thomas on Monday at 10 a.m. With regard to voting. And so there's also a career fair on campus at that time. And we've met with the Secretary of the State about early voting as well as other topics. But in particular, she was interested to chat with us about how we can get students not only to vote, but to participate and to assist with voting at voting locations and these kinds of things. They have an internship program and other things that I think that she's going to want to talk about. So I just wanted to put that on folks' radar. Couple other quick.
Have you
yeah.
invited anybody from the town for that, or is that
Well,
just a straight university
I
thing?
will note to see if we can do that.
Okay. Given that this is a collaborative effort.
Absolutely. So thank you for that.
Not that I want to invite myself.
That's
But
okay.
then again,
You're the mayor. You can do that. So very good. Just a few things about the entering class and enrollment and, where we ended up this year. We had about 4,500 new students at the Storrs campus this year. It's the largest first year class that we've had. Last year also was the largest class that we had, and that was 4,189. Last night at midnight was actually the snapshot that was taken that it gives us the official count. So these numbers might vary just a little bit that I'll give out. It's among one of the more diverse classes that we've had. And in particular, about half of the students in our entering class are not from Connecticut this year at Storrs. So a lot of first generation students, a lot of students with financial need, over 1,200 actually students that are eligible for the federal Pell Grant in the entering class. For reference, we had about 2,000 new students across our regional campuses throughout the state, which is also one of the largest intakes that we've ever had at those campuses. So pretty excited about that. And we had about 750 new transfers. There's been a lot of talk about housing and in the news about what's going on there because we had done a few things differently this year. While Connecticut Hall has about 650 new beds, we actually were able to house 1,000 more students on campus this year compared to last year at this time. And so what we did to achieve that is we did work with the Oaks. We secured an agreement with the Oaks back in February to have about 150 beds or somewhere in that ballpark that we're utilizing in the downtown area. We also continued to build up space within the existing buildings that we have, where we would add triples, an extra bed here and there, or quadruples in ways that we had done so in the past. So that's how we get to 1,000 more students in the residence halls. We did provide incentives to students to cancel because we always have students who cancel last minute. That effort was being done to try and accelerate that process such that we could tell students that were on the waiting list that we could house them in July rather than to tell them that sometime in August, or for that matter, after classes started. That was incredibly successful to the point that at our latest count is actually we have only 36 entering students that are on the wait list right now. Last year, that number was significantly larger, over 100. And so very successful in getting students to cancel and give us the ability to house students earlier rather than later in the process. So I'm pretty excited about how that went. Overall, just to share, we have almost 19,900 undergraduate students at the Storrs campus. We also have a small uptick in graduate students, though not as significant, but those numbers are being finalized as well. So in total, across all of our campuses, in terms of undergraduate students, we have 24,900 plus, almost 25,000 students enrolled across our campuses. So just wanted to provide that update with regard to the numbers. I'm going to turn it to John in just a second, but I anticipate there may be some questions about some of this stuff. Paul.
So would it be accurate to say that there's fewer students in the neighborhoods if you have 1,000 more beds and 400 more students?
Yeah, it stands to reason that that would be the case because
Okay.
last year we had 19,147. So
That's good.
yeah, if it's logical that that's the
Yeah.
case.
Brian?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question about the once proposed 900 bed Mansfield apartment project. Whatever happened to that?
Sean, I don't know if you want to share an update on it.
Yeah, Brian, I just asked for an update last week. What I was told is that we're expecting potentially to go back into a redesign phase before this time next year.
Are they looking to add more beds? Is that, or don't you know?
I'm not certain.
Okay, so it's got to go back to a redesign. So that's
Mhm.
probably gonna put it off a couple of years anyways, I would think.
No, it wouldn't be a wholesale redesign.
Okay, all right, so hoping to add some more beds on your side.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just note, yeah, to your comment, Brian, there is a very active conversation going about the longer term plans for the university with regard to capacity and housing and these kinds of things. Also considering the off-campus developments that have been approved. So that's factoring into our math, those that are designed to accommodate students. So we're trying to look at this more holistically, moving forward. And Mansfield Apartment Site is certainly a piece of the conversation, but it's a multifaceted conversation to be sure.
Okay, thank you for your response.
Yep.
There's some members of our community who have asked why you wouldn't give that site to the town for our new town facilities. So
I know people around this table that have asked that question as well. So let me turn it to John Armstrong for updates from his end.
Thanks, Nathan. One thing I will say is that we,
wait, before you say
sure.
anything, we are delighted to have you back.
well, on that note, but UConn Today and the Daily Digest did post a story that highlighted specifically what that the program is back, to let the university community know and the community know in general that the program is back, the services are back in the Dean of Students Office. And Mayor and Ryan, thank you both for your comments. Very much appreciated. A couple of things I will note in addition, this weekend is family weekend. So we have parent family weekend this weekend. You'll see more activity in and around campus. So there'll be families in and around visiting, and I will be in on Saturday meeting with some families. In addition, for the first time, the university launched a family portal. So as part of my portfolio that I will be working with, currently I'm working with, is we launched a family portal that has had great success so far. We have a parent Facebook page that is not a UConn Facebook page. It's a Facebook page that parents have created. What I'll be doing is looking at the Facebook page, posting information into that site, working with campus partners to have information on that site in the portal where parents can comment and learn about how their students doing. The portal is designed to allow parents to really mirror their students and follow their students' pathway from point one as a first year incoming student to a graduating senior. And it's focused on undergraduates. So that is launched. It's called the UConn Family Portal, and it's doing quite well.
And that doesn't get you into trouble with FERPA?
It is not. All the information that we are discussing in there is public-facing information. However, there are options for the system to allow us to do FERPA access, so parents can do FERPA access with their students right in the portal. So there's a lot of options we can look at. There's parent giving, there's those campaign givings that can happen in there, there's enrollment. I'm not going to get into that because that's Nathan's area, but there's also options for FERPA access within the system that is of interest to folks at UConn. So we're not meddling with, students have said, what if I don't want parents to have my access? It's the same information that that students can see, that's public facing, nothing that's privately protected or FERPA protected.
So given this additional contact with parents, if you find a house where there are recurring parties, do you contact parents?
We do not. They're privately owned houses. That's not something that we would get involved in, nor would we ever tell a student that they can't do certain things on that property because it is private property. What I've talked about for years is to involve landlords more into this conversation. Currently, we've had a number of at least 4 or 5 issues that have been significant since we've opened. The landlords have been non-responsive. So involving them more in those conversations is where we need to go.
Here on that one.
Questions for John? Kathleen?
I actually have a question for Nathan about the enrollment numbers. Sorry.
Yes.
When you say there's 19,000 plus students enrolled, where's the, how do you determine if they're a Storrs campus or Hartford? Is it based on where they're housing or where their classes are?
Great question. It's actually based on where the majority of their classes are, is how that's calculated. So at the end of the day, so we identify their home campus that way. It is worth noting there are some students, regional-based students that are living in Storrs, and that's a consistent number this year is what we've seen in recent time. So no major changes there this year.
I had never heard that until I got a question from somebody. Were there branch residents living in campus? And you said yes. That was a real
Yeah,
surprise.
mostly Hartford campus students, maybe a couple Avery Point campus students,
Yeah.
but yes. Mhm.
So there's been some real expansion in the Hartford branch, and I know that they're talking about dorms in Stanford as well. Is the university planning expansion in those areas?
Yeah, the
branches?
Hartford campus housing project has been gone through its early stages of approval, and that project is progressing. And it's likely that that'll change the landscape with regard to Hartford campus students living in Storrs, more or less. Stanford already has housing, and actually we increased the size of that program quite substantially this year on a percentage basis, and are looking to continue to grow that opportunity going forward. Also, are having conversations about the other campuses. So Avery Point and Waterbury in that regard.
So, and not Torrington, obviously. I have much too long a history with higher education in Connecticut. Torrington was almost closed, I think, 5 times before it was actually closed. There was a guy who did his dissertation on closing the Torrington campus. He had to keep coming back to undo his dissertation and redo it. Can you talk to us about this 40,000 student issue?
Yeah, so this is really a question from our state leaders with regard to the 40,000 student number. I would just note that that includes all students, not just undergraduates. And so that's a point of clarification, whereas I think that the letter that Duff and Looney sent suggested it was all undergraduate students. So in terms of actually getting there, those are plans that are worked on over many, many years, and it's something that would require us to be super thoughtful and intentional about creating housing and making sure we have the faculty, making sure we'd have the advisors and all the different supports necessary in order to be able to facilitate that magnitude of growth. Because, as you note, we're at 25,000 now, and if it's the case that we're going to add another 5,000 to 10,000 undergrads, and then on top of that, another several thousand graduate students, it's going to take some super good planning and resources to get us there. So it's a vision, and it's something that I think we'd have to, and we are working on what would it take in order to get there. So that's where we are in the process.
Should the town council make decisions about housing based on the expectation there'll be 40,000 students on the campus?
I wouldn't make any decisions as of yet until it would be something that we would plot to do over, say, a decade or something along those lines. And, at that point in time, we may, we would have an intentional conversation about what's that look like in the community with regard to housing needs versus on campus. So, and what's that split over time? The reality of the matter is, if there's not enough beds for people to sleep in, they're not coming. So we've got to address that ultimately, but then we also have to address the other resource constraints that I mentioned, be it on the faculty, advising, or other fronts.
And I would say, not that this is being left out, but one of the other things that really needs to be taken into consideration is what is the impact on the citizens of Mansfield and their housing. There are there are major concerns right now with realtors just going around to people's houses when they know they're of a certain retirement age. And like I just had my birthday, and the next day on my door was a card from a realtor, call us. And the woman down at the end of the street who's 90 something, she says she fends them off because they're looking for properties that they can then connect with realtors. I mean, realtors are looking for properties that can connect with landlords in order to expand what's available for students and not necessarily UConn students, it could be Eastern, what have you. But at some point, myself and I know other community members that I've talked to are getting concerned that we're being pushed out. That in fact, Mansfield will be will no longer be a vital community to be a first-time homeowner or raise your family.
It is a concern.
I would just add to that. I think your points are very well taken, and certainly without getting too in the weeds of some of the discussions that are or ideas, brainstorming that's happening. Just that I think between the town and UConn in our monthly meetings, there's shared recognition, shared interest, and concern in this issue. Recognition that certainly, frankly, regardless of whether or not the university student body increases, but certainly if it increases along the lines of what Senate leadership has called for, it's going to have demonstrable, significant, profound impacts on housing availability for non-students, whether you're talking about, young families entering the workforce or whatever. And then also what impact does any new construction, new housing products have on the overall kind of market rate housing that exists? I know we've heard from a number of qualified sources that the laws of supply and demand don't necessarily work the way you think they would, that you increase supply and the cost for existing housing maybe goes down. In fact, maybe the opposite. You introduce new higher end housing product that's priced at this level. The product that was previously priced at this level can now raise their rates because that gap still exists. And so what does that mean for the overall affordability of the town? But I really do see there being a lot of shared interest here because just as we talk about the many reasons why having the majority of students live on campus, how that helps the town and its goals. UConn, obviously, whether it's faculty, staff, graduate students, has a lot of interest in this too. So I do really think this is an area where we can work together, and hopefully, the solutions won't be easy, but definitely an area for us to work together.
And I would just think that, or I would appreciate if there are perhaps citizens like myself who aren't a member of the town council or a member of the university are also able to put in their experience and vital interest in the community in which they're living and hoping to serve.
That's why we have public comment before every council meeting, and that's why this committee exists.
I understand. I would like to see it actually be a committee or a subcommittee.
Here we are. Really?
I have a couple questions for Nathan, if that'd be okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Nathan, you said earlier in your statement that there's, if I remember correctly, 4,500 new students this year at Storrs. And if I heard you correctly, half were not from Connecticut. Is that right?
Yeah, half are from Connecticut and the other half were from outside the state and international students.
Okay, so that concerns me a little bit because we want to put Connecticut residents first when it comes to, and I don't know if there's a certain criteria you go by, but I would be concerned that that Connecticut residents have first whack at a affordable education.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
so
actually, I'll just note a couple things. One, the number of high school graduates in the state of Connecticut's on a significant decline at the moment. So that has to do with birth rate, and there's just fewer young people in our state. And so there's fewer Connecticut students ultimately to select from. The other thing that I'll note is that the sheer number of Connecticut residents is pretty close to where it has been historically. It's just that we're growing the size of the class with students that are not from Connecticut, and that's where we're seeing the growth and interest. And then the last point that I'd make is that admission to the university is something that is a result of a holistic review, and we take all the applicants we received. We had about 58,000 first-year applicants and then several thousand transfer applicants that applied to the university. We review all those, and the most successful candidates are those that are offered admission. So it is an objective review that results from reading every single application. So that's
So
how we
basically,
arrive at that.
you're working with demographics,
Correct.
kind of restricted by demographics.
Yep.
Okay, I understand that. Hey, I worked at the university starting in 1993, I think it was, and the governor then John Rowland rolled out what we called UConn 2000. It was a very aggressive program in the 90s, of course. It went on to build many, many academic buildings and dormitories and whatnot. I worked there till 2018, and I felt that UConn 2000 never stopped. Okay, so the university has continued to grow rather aggressively. Okay, now we're hearing numbers of, hey, we might need another 8,000 or 10,000 students at the Storrs campus. What concerns me there, and I think Dale mentioned it, is our infrastructure. You know, I hope the university grows and is able to provide a good education to, most importantly, our residents and others as well. But I've been here a long time, and I know it takes me 10, 15, 20 minutes just get out of Center Street or Mansfield Center post office. I see the roads are narrow. They can't be widened for many reasons. Our connector roads are getting crowded as well. I mean, we have an email from our past Secretary of State, Denise Merrill, with concerns on Cypress Road and the closing of Hillside. But that goes for all of us in town, even on the southern. We were kind of protected from it in the southern end of town for many years. Now, it's the same everywhere you go. It's not just Cypress Road. We somehow have to address these issues with our substandard infrastructure, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do that without going subterranean or something crazy like that, or creating a beltway highway straight to the university to solve these traffic problems. So the town of Mansfield, the people who I represent, most certainly are concerned about how we're going to address police, fire issues. Of course, we have the sergeant here today. Road infrastructure, quality of life, light pollution, noise pollution, parties.
Brian, Brian, I'm going to cut you off because we're 10 minutes over the time limit for this meeting. I
I'm
think
pretty
that,
much done talking anyways, Madam Mayor.
I think that the concerns that everybody has been raising are well known to the town and to the university. There's some more issues on our agenda that I want to get to quickly because we're literally running out of time. Anything further on campus updates? Then let's move on to the litter reduction working group. You want to do that description?
Sure. So maybe try and do this quickly. We've established 2 dates for litter cleanup. They are November 16th, 2024 and April 26th, 2025. We have eco captains, student leaders that are on campus as well as off campus residents living in rental apartments that have been identified by our Office of Sustainability, and they're going to help us to spearhead those efforts. I would also note that our Greek Life area has adopted Hunting Lodge Road, and we'll be working with them to coordinate regular cleanups along Hunting Lodge Road, and really focusing our efforts on a specific set of roads around the campus with regard to our student participation for those cleanup efforts, although they will be townwide efforts, correct, Mayor?
They will be townwide efforts. And we have always had a road crew, as you will say, that it hasn't been monitored particularly well, and I'm not sure how thoroughly and how regularly the people who had volunteered for that are still doing it. So we will we will revitalize that program, and we will continue it, and we will encourage town and university students to work together on on maintaining our roadsides. We're talking about creating a logo, safety vests, and gloves and tools for picking stuff up. So we have some real hopes that the town will see a real difference, and that both older and younger people will begin to feel a greater responsibility for the roads in town. I always say this: if you want to teach somebody to not litter, you make them go pick it up. Once you've had to pick it up a couple of times, you get much more careful about what you throw out the window of your car. Brian, quickly, please.
Just a quick shout out to Sabrina Hosmer. She helped did a cleanup this past spring, but she went out and re-cleaned and re-picked the litter down North Eagleville and Meadowbrook.
Good for her. All right. Anything else on litter reduction? All right, traffic on Separatist Road. You've seen the letter that Denise Merrill sent. Nathan, you've had a very direct involvement in this issue, so maybe you should describe it.
Yeah, or maybe just by
Sean
way
needs
of
to kick in too.
Yeah, that could be that he has even more information than me, but I know that one of the, well, let's just say the concern is, just to make sure that everybody's clear, is the increased traffic along Separatists, including buses, and traffic to games and athletic events and these sorts of things. And so we've heard that concern raised, and what we're doing in response to that is first notifying our bus drivers, those that deliver teams and members of the band or what have you, that they should not utilize Separatist as a passageway, and rather use Hillside and other 195 and other ways to get to the events and to the middle of campus. And so that's something that I believe Stan Nolan has already taken the steps to address with athletics and others. So Sean, I don't know if you have any other information on this that you would add.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I'll just add a couple of points. One is very late breaking and exciting to share. The first less exciting is it's very logical to think that the timing of Hillside has impacted that corner and those turning movements. But I don't think it's the only factor. And that leads me to my second point. We understood that, and we were hungry for the data as well. We've had conversations with the town, with DOT, all leading up to a grant application that we submitted in May. That has 7 components to it, including a comprehensive safety action plan, as well as a comprehensive traffic model for campus that would encompass the surrounding perimeter roads. We were notified, or I was notified Friday morning, that we received the award. So we've been given $1.6 million to do those 7 tasks over the next couple of years in partnership with the Connecticut Transportation Institute. We received support from the town of Mansfield, CTDOT, the BILT, and as well as the CROG. So we're excited to get that work started, and we'll see what comes out of the data, and we'll make recommendations accordingly.
Wow, could you let us see what exactly is covered in that grant? Because it would be very interesting to know where the boundaries of your work are.
Absolutely, I'll be happy to share the application.
Terrific. Any questions on this? Ryan, do you have questions on this? No. Okay, then an immediate problem has been solved, and a long-term problem is on its way to solution. So that's good news. Are you definitely going to close Hillside forever?
I think that remains to be seen.
Okay.
It still functions very much as a street for the authorized vehicles who use it.
And
We
then,
have not, there's nothing, no impediments in their way that can't be moved.
and what vehicles are authorized to use it at this point?
Buses, emergency vehicles, authorized service vehicles.
Okay. All right, other updates or progress to report? Anybody have any updates or progress?
If I may, just a little bit of thing. I sent a picture to Margaret about the signage at the Moss Preservation. And what happened was the old signage included something about no campfires, et cetera. The new signage does not. So it would really be great if it could include maybe two additions to the current signage that would just be, you know, the campfire with the red circle and arrow through it, and also one of a bicycle and red circle and arrow through it just next to the signage would be really helpful. There have been, again, another campfire last week and there's also a lean-to there, like somebody's sleeping there or something. I don't know.
Is that, there is sort of this established fire pit area right near the pond that we try to
yes, it's-
disassemble every once in a while. Is it right there?
No, it's closer to, it's the southern side. It's not by the lake at all. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
This one's about midway between the lake and Birchwood Heights.
Okay, maybe after this, we could pull up a map and you can show, and I can get Public Works to kind of look at that.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
just related to Moss Sanctuary, Nathan reminded me, and Jenna, I don't know if Robert has spoken to you in the last day or so, but we did agree to grant some access for trail use on that side of the street. However, we're also reached agreement with VMS, the town's contractor, to utilize that same area for the waterline project. So once they're done using that, we'll be able to have trail patrons park on that side of the street.
I noticed that there's some kind of earthwork going on right
That's-
now.
That's VMS's construction materials. They're using it for staging.
Okay,
We entered into an access agreement with the town for that.
so there is no access to Moss Sanctuary from
There's
South Eagleville?
on foot, but not to park a car.
Can't park a car there. Okay. Are we aware of that?
We have been aware of it, yep, and working with UConn, as Sean said, once the staging's done.
Okay. All right, thank you. Future agenda items, we have three issues on the agenda for future consideration. Is there anything we ought to add to that? Seeing and hearing nothing. We have in the audience Sergeant King. Sergeant King, do you have anything to add to this discussion so far? You guys have been fairly busy this last couple of weeks on weekends. How bad have the parties been? What is his job?
I can add the first 2 weekends were definitely significantly busier. After the first weekend, John and I had a chance to go around and do some of our in-person talks with some of the tenants. The first 2 weekends, we gave out 7 of the town nuisance violations, but then this past weekend, we gave out none. So I think hopefully we continue to see that trend. Most of the nuisance issues were right in the regular area of North Eagle and Hunting Lodge. They were all kind of at 4 houses right there, but there was several thousand at each one. But I can say at least the renters and students were very cooperative, the right attitude. So we're happy to say that. But like I said, this past weekend was certainly an improvement. So we'll hope to see that trend continue.
If I may, I was having lunch at the tavern, which actually, because Ryan, you'd mentioned the tavern, it's lovely. It's a nice place. Should be mentioned in the promo for Mansfield. And at 2 separate tables, people were talking about what are we going to do about all of the student problems with parking on our property, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself but go over to their table and say, we have a new sergeant in town. And I suggest that you call this number to complain instead of just going, we can't do anything. But in so doing, what also came up which I think might be an agenda item is about realtors and those who are landlords. And how are we working this all out? That families have the opportunity to possibly purchase properties. I mentioned that because the woman I was with on Hillydale said they're having a big problem with students. And what's happening is all the properties of there, and there are nice properties, are being taken now by landlords. And they're trying to get enough neighbors that are still there together to purchase at least one of the houses, so it's not going to go to students. And so it is an issue, and I don't want it to be a negative issue. I think it is a positive thing about how do we balance this, and maybe ultimately be able to take some of that responsibility or weight off of your back and staff, so.
Absolutely. Thank you for the comment. Certainly, we want to see that balance in town between students and, permanent residents here, and that's certainly an important thing. But absolutely, like you said, you're passing the information on. I'm happy to address concerns as they come up.
Okay.
All right, thank you. This has been a long meeting. I think we have covered everything. Our next meeting is November 12th. By that point, we will know how the early voting went. And the actual late voting as well. And I really hope that we can turn out students to vote, because that's what a democracy needs, is people to vote. So anyway, have a good month, and we'll see you in 2 months. I need a motion to adjourn.
So
I'll do
moved.
it.
Okay, moved by Nathan, seconded by Susanna. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. You know that, you can vote anyway. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, I do. No. Thanks for the reminder. It's been just a